We're moving into physical AI from agentic AI. And I think most people are missing is both of those require
My understanding was that there definitely has to be some form of human creativity is kind of the requirement. So just changing a pixel, fluffing some words around, whatever is not going to be enough.
The huge barrier to LLMs being useful is actually feeding it data that's part of your enterprise.
No developer at any level, unless they're super junior, is doing this and just living with having no mental model of what's going on in the software. Welcome to another episode of AI After Hours. Each month, we cut through the AI hype by answering your top questions and calling bullshit on the headlines that we don't think make any sense. Join us for a monthly roundup of AI news and real insights into what's true and what's not in the world of artificial intelligence. Have a question or topic? Email us and join the conversation. Let's dive into the world of AI together.
I'm your co-host, Yuying Chen-Wynn, a technology and product executive with extensive experience in AI, fintech, and edtech. I'm an ex-chief product officer turned AI executive, currently leading everything generative AI at the financial company Peak 6 and its family of companies. I love talking about AI, especially with my delightful co-host.
That's me. My name is Polly Allen. I'm the founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product managers navigate the world of AI and product leaders transition into AI leadership roles. I've spent my career in both the product and software development sides of the fence, and I was most recently an ex-Alexa AI principal product manager, where I launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa back in 2020. I'm always super excited to be talking about AI with Yuying, especially on this AI After Hours podcast. Yuying, what are we drinking today? Normally we have some kind of alcoholic enjoyment bev, but we're both going for stimulants today, right? There we go.
Right, we gotta keep it upbeat and fast. I got my Como se llama, a little nod to the llamas or llama decks, or just trying to bring it into the topic here. All right.
Fantastic. Well, I wonder if we'll speak a lot faster today based on all of
exactly. Joel, our producer is going to have to slow it way down, otherwise. All right, and with that, I'm going to start the monthly news roundup. This is where we cover all the AI news that comes. Correction, not all the AI news that comes out in the month, but selected based on our perspective of what is actually useful, impactful, and meaningful. And yes, we do highlight the ones that we do think is BS. Now, we are talking about the roundup for March. And the biggest thing in all of AI in March, if you didn't know, was NVIDIA GTC 2025, their annual conference for NVIDIA down in San Jose. Now, okay.
You got to go.
I was, oh my God, I was there. This is the rock concerts for all the AI nerds. That's like, you think long lines, think camping out to get into sessions you want to. You got your idols you're trying to get in to see. Maybe you'll get into the arena, maybe you won't. Yeah, there were 39,000 attendees in 2025 this year. Last year was only about 11,000, and last year was the first time in person back from NVIDIA. And yeah, even the keynote was like, well, come 2 hours early. First come, first serve. Maybe you'll see Jensen. Maybe you won't. This is for my sessions. I gave up lunch to stand in line so I can get into the sessions that I wanted to. I look at this place and this is where all the AI nerds came. I met kids who were still in school, trying to study, trying to figure out what they were doing, getting all the training they can. At MEC, I met guys who were retired, who came in going, what is this AI thing? Maybe I should get involved. I used to be an engineer for 30 years. What is this thing? So the full spectrum. Yeah. So if I was a recruiter, you go in there and just pass it. That's where you get everybody. I was asked if people felt the layoffs and job scarcity in that conference. Nope. Not at all. Everybody around me is talking about job hopping, multiple recruiters, multiple offers. It is the hot skill set, exactly what it is. I think you'll dive into. We'll talk about some of the other pieces. But what did you hear about NVIDIA? And I know way too much. It might be better if you just ask me for
Well, it's like, what was of the live sessions you got to go to? What was your favorite session?
Oh my God, that's like picking a favorite child out of 1,000. So I spend the majority of my time actually in training workshops from NVIDIA. And my favorite part is when you got in, not only did you get all the code and the sample data, you spun up GPUs in that lab that you have access to for a couple hours. So I tried to get in on as many as I could so I could get enrolled. And so I have on my hands a couple of, maybe 30 GPU hours because I've gotten in all these labs. So yeah, I'm real practical. I don't know if everybody figured out that was the extra benefit, but the workshop lines were the longest, and
Interesting.
anything agentic.
Agentic, yeah, it was like agentic is obviously hot. So was it a lot of developers? Did you see a lot of business people there? Because it feels like those labs were pretty code heavy, right?
Very, very code heavy. It's not a conference I would recommend to business people at all. Even in like the exhibit floors where usually you're trying to get leads, etc. Very, very technical. This is one of those. I'm like, send your top nerds. They'll be very happy. Have your business execs kind of get the summary or attend a few select sessions. Even the business case studies, super deep dive. All your CTOs, all your CIOs, all architecture diagrams and model training, like architecture, very technical.
It's very cool to see though. This really is where they're disseminating some of the best practices across industry. And you can feel that in the rooms that people are just like, they're so hungry because everyone is doing things in their own way, trying to forge their own path, having a chance to get together and actually like get some best practices from the leading industry providers. Seems like just I can understand why it's just exploding in popularity.
So adoption in enterprises is far more in depth than I would have expected from just a year. The case studies had a lot of depth in them. Like I said, it's not for business execs. A little plug. I just wrote a newsletter that does summarize what the business exec takeaway would be. Because yeah, if you were there, you'd be like, oh my God, what the hell just happened? But yeah, everybody was there and you can feel every single industry engaging at the same time. And we're moving into physical AI from agentic AI. And the piece that I think most people are missing is both of those require like 10x the tokens than what we're used to with generative AI. I was looking at the stock price as the keynote happened. I don't think people caught that, but these phases we're moving into, the token demand, much, much, much higher than we ever estimated. So,
is it heavily dependent on the context lengths continuing to become, longer, more accurate and retrieval across the full context window? Or is that like we're kind of getting around that with engineering now, and we're not as dependent on these long context windows?
They didn't talk about it, but the big push, in order to move into physical AI, you need multimodal. That means video and audio streaming in, right?
Yeah.
The moment you break those down into tokens, you're like, wow, the current context can't deal with that at all.
Right. No, super great point. That's true. That idea of like the richness of environmental information and data. It kind of does make you marvel at your own brain, right? We just do this out of the box.
Powered on a Snickers bar. Power is definitely the limiter, but we're powered on a Snickers
bar. Coffee.
Yeah.
Don't forget the
coffee. So I could talk about NVIDIA forever, but we won't.
So it sounds like the highlights were definitely the technical sessions. You got to do stuff for free, and agentic, obviously, still a huge, huge theme.
Yeah, and I would just say a note for all the nerds out there: put it in your calendar for next year. If you want to get in early.
Yeah, I was going to say I want to join next year. I missed it. I felt like I missed out this year.
You got to with me next year. One funny note maybe we'll cut out because it's getting too long. I was like, how do you know that this is a conference full of introverts and nerds? I talk probably 70% of the people I talk to at length, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because we're waiting in line together. They do not ask me my name. I do not ask them theirs. I do not know their names, and neither do I.
It's not a networking conference, that's for sure. Also, I was going to ask, like, were there like evening events and concerts, or was everyone like, "Ooh, good, it's 7 p.m. Let's go home"?
No, there were, but I didn't go, so I don't know.
Yuying, you're killing me.
This is why you gotta come with me. You guys gotta know that I met Polly and I came up
Met
with
at a
a podcast
conference.
at a conference because she's the extrovert, I'm the introvert, so
We're a great pair.
together we're better than.
Exactly. I'll collect all the business cards.
This is why you got to come with it. I'm like, I talked to this guy who was working at a French medical company doing AI. That sounds cool. I have no idea. Don't know the company. Don't know the name. Don't know.
So yeah, different kind of conference than the business ones for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's the nerds
amazing.
who are not afraid of lines. Anyways, okay, on to the next bit of
Yeah, there were more headlines.
more headlines. So one of the things we started to talk about in the past is how all the major players eventually, all their functionality evens up. So a couple of announcements that just shows you that I'm totally right, and so is Polly about all this. Uh, Anthropic Claude now has web search, right? So OpenAI has theirs. Of course, Perplexity was the one. Grok actually didn't check. I think they have theirs. Anthropic was the only one without it. Now it does. Google now has Canvas, like the OpenAI
Yeah.
Canvas, which is the Claude Artifacts equivalent, which is, I won't go into it, but now Google has Canvas. XAI, I know. Yes, I'm counting them one of the major players now. XAI, for their chat with Grok, now has image generation, right? That's just on
Right.
par with what everybody has. And then one final one, Google Gemini now has Code Assist. Well, we haven't
Right.
looked for that before. Okay, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4 just in this month. What was your
Right.
take on that, Polly?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. They're all playing catch up, and we're also kind of seeing that. I don't know, when we looked at how Claude had first implemented artifacts, and then OpenAI implemented Canvas, but it was a little bit different, right? That it was like we're getting a different takes. But now it seems like we're in the age of like, okay, we just need to catch up and have the same thing, right? Like we're solidifying a little more around here's some core capabilities. People just want the web search as part of this. They want up to date information. It's table stakes. And again, it has implications for the monetization strategy of all these companies, right? That they're like, oh, okay, instead of making new differentiating features for which we can hopefully maybe charge more, we're having to just play catch up just to stay in the game because these prices are going to just continue like to fall. They're currently losing money at $20 a month. You can see why OpenAI is trying to make these higher price tiers $200, $2,000 a month because they've got to figure out a way to monetize, and it's apparently not going to be on these kinds of the way the tool works, little features and user facing bells and whistles, right?
Yep, yep. And I just realized that one of the things that even started to fall off even our radar is the new model releases, right? So Claude is up to 3.7.
Yeah,
OpenAI has 4.5. Nobody really talks about it outside of it's kind of disappointing.
yeah,
Gemini is 2.5 is an experiment preview, I believe. That's a new one. And then someone else just asked me, so when do you think the Meta Llama 3, the next version of that is going to come out? I'm
yeah.
like, we're at the
Right.
point where these improvements are not even hitting the major news
No.
anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I do wonder if that's like there's a little bit of just like AI fatigue. Like we can't get excited about a new model. Well, particularly if we don't see some flashy new thing that it does way better. And I think that's part of it too, right? That like when GPT 4.0 came out was the last big, like the model is the thing and we'll see a vast improvements. It's kind of pretty good, right? I do think Anthropic's gone the extra mile with their sonnet model in that they're doing a better job, I think, of not making you choose which model to use, right? That's no longer on the user. It should be, hey, why should the LLM may actually be better informed to, decide whether I'm using thinking tokens under the hood or not for this particular query. And so I think that was really smart of them to take that away. Developers may want that level of control, but consumers probably don't, right? They probably just want it to work. So it's kind of a reflection, I think. Like, do these models, if they kind of work, 80%, do the new models matter? Not so much.
I say for me, not so much, but we will see because they might probably come out with something. I'm like, oh my god, I have to have it.
Where they matter is enterprise use cases, right? Where you're like, oh, the difference between 85% of the time it's correct and 95% of the time is the difference between you can launch it or not, right? Like, So the people who are really measuring this and making things consistent, these models, I understand, have pretty big differences.
Exactly. I'm totally with you on. And this next one I think is fascinating because it's about, there was a study that came out that says, and there's a fun little graph which hopefully I'll share with, we'll have it in the listing. The length of tasks AI can do is doubling every 7 months. And we are currently at where AI, so we're talking about AI autonomously finishing a task relative to how long it would take a human to do. Okay, this is we're talking about the length of tasks. We're now well beyond 1 hour
Right.
of human tasks. It just automates and does itself. We're pretty close to doing 4 hours. We passed like the second and all, like if you think about question and answer, that's not really replacing very long tasks.
Right.
Think
Very
about
complex.
things you're seeing right now in terms of writing code and generating applications. We're really getting beyond more of that, like a couple of hours level.
Yeah.
So if that is the new doubling every 7 months, that means by this time next year.
Did you do the math? How much of an app can you write in 1 hour?
Let me ask Claude.
Yeah, exactly. I've lost the ability to do math as a
Yeah, I've
human
lost the
anymore.
ability to do anything except for ask.
Ask the right question. That's fascinating. I mean, I'm still waiting. I have two benchmark tasks for me that I'm like, okay, when I can do these two things, the first one is fill out mother flippin' expense reports. It's just like it's been my bugaboo thing for a million years, and I'm just like, this can't possibly be worth anybody's time to like laboriously enter receipts and paper and take a picture and all this BS when it's like, can I not just scan these receipts and you figure it out? Like come on. And the fact that that wasn't one of the first things people built indicates to me something's still not like as reliable as it needs to be in agentic AI. Because I'm like, that's my first most pressing use case, other than my second use case, which is does the dishes. But now we're getting into robotics,
Yeah.
waterproof robotics.
I'm really on the kick of please do my taxes and give me money back.
Yes, totally. Yeah. Oh my god.
I was just like,
Don't just do my taxes. Cheat on my taxes for me.
you can tell we're in the beginning of April here. All right, okay. Let me move on to the next couple of set of news because we got to get through this. All right. One very important thing on the legal side, but also I call it the sad news. AI art generated with text prompts cannot be copyrighted. This is the guidance from the U.S. Copyright Office. It doesn't matter how long your prompt is or how many iterations it took you. If it's from a prompt, not copyrightable. Ugh, it's sad. I don't know how big of a news this is, but this sets a precedence that I think will limit a lot of creativity and actually push the art and image generation models forward. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm interested to like if if a human does work after the prompting, then there's an element, there's going to be a bar of like how much human creation was involved.
Yeah.
And that's going to be that's going to be the gray line for a while that gets argued in the courts, I think, right? Of like, was this enough? Was that enough? I tweaked some sentences. Was that enough? Right? Like, how much human authorship and creativity does there have to be?
So if I just go in and paint a corner,
Yeah.
is that okay? Or I just sign my name at the bottom?
Right, exactly. So my understanding was that there definitely has to be some form of like human creativity is kind of the requirement. And so just changing a pixel, fluffing some words around, whatever is not going to be enough. But where is that line? I think that is going to be tested over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. But so this is one of the legal developments to keep an eye out on, especially for our creatives. And then I think, oh, well, I got two more. All right, two more. We'll do it quick. This one, oh, no, one more because we're saving that one for the questions.
Yeah.
Okay. In the physical AI space, Waymo. So this Waymo that's been running over in SF and now Silicon Valley. We have it in LA. I saw it in Austin.
Austin, yeah.
The autonomous driving, that's really the only player that's getting out there right now. But they have a Uber partnership in Austin. So you can actually just order a Waymo on your Uber. Now, this seems like just a run-of-the-mill business partnership, but I think this is the thing that breaks open the adoption of autonomous cars or autonomous taxis for general usage. And this was always kind of the one I was waiting for, which was the Uber Waymo fleet.
Yeah.
Did you take
Yeah.
it?
I would take it for a short trip just to experience it. I keep hearing from folks who have taken it that it's like the first time you're freaked out, and then you get in, it instantly feels very normal, and then you're totally not freaked out anymore. Like it gets normalized in your own mind really quickly. But I got to do more rates about the accident rates before I.
I haven't taken one. I met one on the road, and I tell you, my first instinct is try to block it out and see if I can test the algorithm.
Please don't cause a car accident. Just
I'm just
just
like,
for testing
I wonder what
purposes.
it's sensing. I was like, so like, no, I want to block it off. I want to cut it off.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see what happens. I was in San Francisco for a conference last fall, and I was walking to the conference because my Uber had been like blocks away. There was a giant traffic jam. I was like, I'm 3 blocks. I'm just going to walk. And it turned out there were 2 Waymo vehicles stalled, like right next to each other,
Uh,
in the 2 lanes. There was like behind it was like an Amazon Prime van, and I was like, I'm having the most San Francisco day. Like this is the most
was there
Silicon
one of those
Valley.
little Cocoa delivery carts on the sidewalk running down?
That would have been perfect. Yeah, exactly.
I also want
Exactly.
to rob those every time I see one.
We're admitting to a lot of felonies on this podcast this week. Considering there's no alcohol involved, I'm impressed with our felonious.
Yeah, so now you know it doesn't actually. Ewing does not need alcohol to be silly.
Right,
That's
exactly. We're
always an
like this,
excuse, so you can blame it. It could be completely water.
we're up for good trouble no
Or
matter what.
yeah, exactly.
We
All
should
right,
just
and
let them
that
blame it.
concludes what we considered newsworthy for the month of March. Get you into our next big section of big questions by Polly.
Big questions, awesome. So the internet is ablaze now with a new term. In case you weren't exhausted with new important things you need to learn about.
You did not.
Um, Yeah, exactly. And of course, this time it's with TLA. It's a 3-letter acronym, which is, even adds to its mystique. Um, where the term I'm talking about, of course, is MCP, Model Context Protocol.
If
It
you
was
just
brought out.
ask an AI what MCP is, it will not tell you that.
Right. I know. And also, I think it's interesting because there's a bunch of like kind of not great analogies out there on the internet now, and I'm pretty sure they're AI generated. Where people are like, it's the USB ports for LLMs, and I'm like, it's kind of, but that doesn't. It's very, of course, any analogy, you're boiling it down to something more simple. Um, but I'm certainly glad to know that you have some hands-on experience using it, Yuying, and you understand hands-on, viscerally why it's been such a big deal. The way I have been talking to business leaders about it is really like it introduces a layer that helps LLMs be more consistent when they're making calls to external tools. So you could before, this is the part that gets munged up, you could absolutely before get an LLM to write the syntax for an API call to your Gmail if you wanted to pull an email from your Gmail or an API to get the weather. You could absolutely do that. But for every tool you wanted to use, you had to specify like the API call would look different for every different company. They all do it different ways. Even when you're making API calls to LLMs, the API call in Python for Gemini uses different libraries, looks completely different to a call from OpenAI. So the key is it's saying, hey, everyone, it's just a protocol saying, let's make sure our calls to external tools, and that could be external databases, it could be APIs, let's have a standard way of calling them. And then that way, when we train our LLMs, we can train them to be consistent on one protocol. They'll be more consistent along the way. Um, am I missing any nuance there, Yuying? Because I know there's
I
a
mean,
little bit
for
of a
us, it's a lifesaver.
yeah,
So
exactly. People don't understand how the painful world we were in before, so they don't get why it's so
yeah.
great, right?
So within enterprises, the huge barrier to LLMs being useful is actually feeding it data that's part of your enterprise. Because just asking it about general knowledge, like why is the sky blue, which nobody needs for their job or matters, right? Those are not the most useful things. It's good that the general LLMs understand coding, so that's why one of the most useful things without having to extend. But the information inside companies are in your Slack, your Confluence, your Jira, your Monday, your
Yeah.
Salesforce, your
A
Zendesk,
bunch of different things all over the place. Yeah.
all of this, right? And that's what people's actual work consists of. Now, in the previous version, whoever it is, whether it's the platform or it's the internal IT team, have to write connections to all these different APIs with all. I've been writing stuff to the Zendesk API. Oh, is it painful? I'm to the Jira directly. Oh my God, is it painful? Everything is so specific, and there are 3 ways to do things, and one of them works for what you're doing, right? So that's just repeated work over and over and over within every enterprise, and they like, please, can somebody just standardize? And if Zendesk puts out an Zendesk MCP, everybody can just use it, and nobody knows better than Zendesk what the best practices.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To connect to the
Exactly. And
data
then
in
keep it
there.
up to date, which the documentation isn't necessarily up to date. So you don't have to follow the documentation. They just change it in the back end and it still works.
Yeah.
When they upgrade a version or something.
Oh, so it's pretty much unlocked us internally as an enterprise. So nobody has to go. I'm like, why would we need to write a Jira connector? That has to exist. But I can't just grab some other devs because however they wrote them, they may not be whatever it is I need. So this standardization, it absolutely unlocks. And one of my favorite things is this thing started as from Anthropic. So people associated with Anthropic and Claude only. But it is no longer the case, right? It's meant to be a standard protocol, and OpenAI, this was one of the other one I was very happy to see, is going to support MCP.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, they already do, as of I think a few days ago, support MCP within their agent SDK. So building agents using MCP, totally possible.
Right.
I'm surprised they haven't actually enabled it in their desktop app for ChatGPT yet, because
Yep.
Claude has. So you can actually connect directly to, like, you just, as a non-coder, you could be like, I want to connect to this weather server, or connect Claude to my Jira. You could stand up a Jira MCP for your instance of Jira, and then connect to it from your Claude, and then be like, writing Claude, be like, hey, add a ticket. You can do that, right? Like it's so hard when we've had so many mind-blowing advancements to be like, no, guys, this is really cool.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, since there's now already MCP server marketplace. It's not yet charging for money, but do you think this is where the explosion of where people can make money creating these and putting them in the marketplace? Is that where the custom GPT failed, where all of these, the new store? What do you think?
It's definitely a new app store kind of play. But I mean, I think so. The big providers are going to this will be table stakes, because they'll want people to be able to use their tools easily from LLMs. So the big providers will be providing some of the big ones. I don't know. I think like a lot of the custom GPT and the apps before that, with the app store, what were they called before? I don't remember. The GPT, those GPT things, apps,
The
whatever.
plugins? What are the plugins?
Yeah, plugins. It was plugins.
Okay.
That was it. ChatGPT plugins, whatever, right? Definitely not. Okay, ChatGPT plugins were still developer facing, but custom GPTs, the idea was like everybody can just write one in 10 minutes.
I can tell you my currently using the standard one and official ones out there. There's definitely room for customized versions of even the major connectors that are specialized.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's, again, to me, it's still that like, oh, the people who can go and write you a custom GPT, like a specialized GPT for your business, that's going to be a very valuable skill, right? Sorry, not GPT.
All right.
MCP. Right, you're a specialized MCP.
Not GPT,
Yeah, MCP related services, absolutely. And being able to customize exactly. I want a Jira thing for my, there's open source Jira MCP servers. Someone still has to actually stand that up, do the configuration, and then you're like, actually, we'd really like to tweak it XYZ ways.
Yeah.
That's
Don't
going to
forget,
be
I think we're a little bit focused on MCP servers now, but there's also custom MCP clients.
right. Yeah. So
Right, yeah.
so the MCP clients, I haven't understood this because when people talk about, oh, I have an MCP, I've just assumed they're talking about a server. But on the client side, how does that work?
So basically, think of a custom application with custom UI that's in front of both the power of the LLM and whatever data it connects to, right? So your desktop Claude is a generic one that doesn't actually do anything for that.
Gotcha.
But your expense one might need a custom front end too.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't think people have gotten there yet. I was like, huh.
And okay. So is that part of, because what I've been struggling to get my mind around here too is the context handling. It's not called model tool protocol. It's not about, it's called model context protocol. And for everything I've looked into, it actually is providing some better ways to handle context in more effective ways. Is that on the client side? Is that part of that?
That I don't know. I know the client side. I haven't written any custom ones outside of stupid examples. So,
excellent. Well, we'll keep you abreast, guys, as we play with MCP. We'll let you know as we go. I think there's more to it than it's simply a tool wrapper. I think there's also, some elements of how it helps you summarize or extract the relevant context for that tool. And so you're not paying for those millions of tokens unnecessarily, right?
I think a platform like Lovable needs to go specialize in creating custom MCP clients that connect into MCP.
To everything. So that Lovable can actually integrate to everything easily. Yeah, absolutely. That's our tip. Lovable, come call us if you need further product direction. Fantastic. Was that the end of have we wrapped up our news for the week? That was our question. Our big questions, MCP. Exactly. So that was our big question for the week. Model context protocol. What is it? Why should we care? Is it a big deal? The answer is yes. Unfortunately, it's a whole other new area exploding that we do need to learn about.
Super fun. All right. And that brings us to my favorite segment of all podcasts ever existed. No bias, of course. This is the BS in AI. Segment where we bullshit, whether we consider it bullshit, we see bullshit, or we feel like there's a lot of bullshit going around in AI. And I am gonna start with your bullshit.
Okay, I was like, who's kicking this off?
You're kicking us off.
Totally. I got a good one this week. I want to talk about vibe coding. The term makes me a little crazy. It's so funny because I don't think vibe coding itself is bullshit, actually, at all. What I do think is kind of the furor over it, the backlash. So, like, the history of this was that Andre Karpathy, who was one of the co-founders of OpenAI, he's a luminary in the space, in like February, he tweeted, "Hey, I'm doing this new thing I call vibe coding." And the idea was really that he is using tools like Cursor, Tailwind, but he kind of like really leans into letting the tool do everything. And it's kind of like just hitting autocomplete every time, the tool makes a suggestion and going, yeah. And then it's like, and if it breaks, I'd be like, fix it. And then like, if it doesn't fix it the first time, I say, fix it again. And usually by like the third time, it works. And, but he was
not true.
Well, he was really explicit. One, he's using this in the context of the coding tools themselves, like coding assistants as a coder, not these total app generations.
Peak level coder himself.
Exactly. But also, he was not recommending this for enterprise software. He definitely had said this in the spirit of, this is fun for weekend projects. And like, it's just kind of fun and relaxing to do. Like, this is a nerdy game he plays with himself. That's like, isn't it kind of interesting that this like kind of basically almost works to like get something running to just prove out a point, he's not using it for enterprise software. So the scary thing that erupted from this was a lot of people taking that as, oh my gosh, Andrew Karpathy says we can now go out and I don't need real developers. I just need people who can tap autocomplete through a bunch of coding to get to enterprise level
Does
software.
not work. Does not work.
Of course it doesn't work. And then not only that, but there's actually been companies that have like released stuff that has then, had giant security holes in it, things like that. We do not know that those companies were officially on board with vibe coding. The rate companies' work is still not that fast that they got the memo in February and they're releasing stuff in March that has security holes because they suddenly told everyone to vibe code. But the anger over this on the internet would make you think that like, oh, all these companies have just adopted vibe coding as their primary means of developing software and everything's going to hell in a handbasket. It's like, that is the bullshit, right? That like no developer at any level, unless they're super junior, is doing this and just living with having no mental model of what's going on in the software. Like that's just, no one would do that.
Yeah, don't hire a college kid and tell them to vibe.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very much like it makes me roll my eyes when you see, especially young, especially primarily dudes on YouTube, just being like, let's vibe code together. And like it's a fun, nerdy thing to nerd out and do. Fine, right? And this, in fact, let's do some of it, right? We're gonna do a live stream.
No. So our live stream of coding has to be not vibe coding.
Oh,
the anti-vibe coding.
We're allowed to have vibes. We're allowed to be cool. I want to be one of the cool kids.
All right, fine.
Actually, I think we're of an age demographic that together we can ruin this. Yep. We can come in and be like the moms who are like, I'm coding now too. Moms are taking it over, and we're like that cycle. Of things
I gotta wear my
cool.
shawl. I gotta get like a little gray in my hair. Wear my shawl. And be like,
we'll vibe code and sing music from Broadway musicals and make it so dorky that no one will ever want to do it again. That's our plan. I love it. Awesome. So the depth of vibe coding. I don't hate on folks who enjoy doing this. It does. I get it. Like I've played around enough with these tools to be like, it's pretty crazy how far you can get doing that. But it's the scary part is it's like that era where we would put prototypes in front of executives and they'd be like, sweet, it's done. And then when you had to rebuild it, they were all surprised.
Yeah, like why is it taking so long?
Exactly.
Actually have to build the back end.
A prototype is not a product, right? A product is not a business. So it's just because you can build such high fidelity prototypes now, you have to do a better job of explaining that.
Yeah. Stick with me on the analogy here with the fish does not know it's in water.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So when somebody like, is it Andre, whatever his name is? No. When highly technical people do these things, they forget the context of how highly technical they are. Exactly. And I can tell you in terms of how they instruct these things to vibe, it's a lot more likely to do the right thing than even me. And when I go, hey, I could do it. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I know a shit ton about how software works. I have a full on computer, and I've been building software, not exactly in the code, but I read code. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, it totally works with me. No. Yeah. Exactly. I watched someone from our business side doing this, and literally in the first prompt to Replit, in a sentence, she is trying to describe the entire CRM product. Yeah. And Replit kind of just choked over it. Because it's trying people with technical and software background when they're vibing. Right. It's not very free open space of anybody can do it.
Exactly. It's not just, and their instructions are not like build an app that does X, right? They'll have like started with the UI or started with a particular layer, a piece that they want to get done first. They have a mental model of where to start and prove out something and what will be easier later to build upon. So that's it. That I find so many people who are like designers, business people who are like get into these app generation interfaces, and they're super frustrated. And they're like, why does everybody think this is easy? Well, you should actually see the questions that developers would put in as a first spec, right? Of where they start. And they're not trying to do the whole thing at once. It's not just simply pasting in a PRD. It actually follows the process of building real software, which if you've never been exposed to it, it's a different, different vibe.
Uber nerds like to start with very specific problems they're trying to solve. And the
Right.
moment you have that focus and it's
Yeah.
problems that tech understands, because, the Uber nerds built the tech.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm with you on the vibe coding.
Yeah.
We can either
Exactly.
improve it and ruin it together.
Exactly.
I'm totally
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. I'm like, I think it sounds fun. It's a hobby. It's
for tech
like,
people.
yeah, it's a hobby for tech, but for tech people. Exactly. And no one should be adopting this as their like enterprise-wide new software methodology. And nobody is. So stop being outraged about that because it's not happening.
Yeah, people are finding things to be outraged about. Okay,
Yeah.
my BS is, at least this time, it's not outrage.
Yay.
It's fatigue. We talk about fatigue
Oh,
here. I am
yeah.
suffering from the AI platform fatigue, the generative AI platform for your enterprise that can solve all your needs, and I can show you that we're both compliance secure and everything.
And the agentic. It's specifically it's
And it's
agentic.
and it's
All agentic.
agentic, and it's multimodal, and they connect to everything, and they're compliant with everything, and they have logos from everywhere, and the marketing is awesome. And there's 100 of these. I'm at the point where even internally we're like, no, we talked to that platform. I thought that was good. Which one was that? There is too many of these generative AI platforms for all. Come one, come all, and all. And the marketing is all great because you know what? Yeah,
Well, it's all exactly like it's all yeah, it's all good, good, good. It's all B plus, right? Like it's all yeah,
and everything I'm looking at, I'm like, how? What's different?
yeah,
I'm at the point where I can't remember who's who. Like
right, yeah,
differentiation, we're just like, okay, you have that, yes, 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 okay, yes, yes, yes. Uh, and if I can't find a differentiation, I stop believing.
yeah. No, totally. An interesting trend I've seen is the people who are differentiating through services, right? That you're like, we're this platform, but we're there. We've actually got the experts on board to really make this work for
So
you.
I also have fatigue for that. Here's our platform. We will build whatever you want. Tell us your
Yeah, well, that's fair too.
like.
That's not a platform.
I'm like,
That's three new grads from Carnegie Mellon in a trench coat.
yeah, I got this too. I got biting on this. Okay. Yeah. So this, I don't know what but it is very fragmented. It is that phase. It's very difficult for any enterprise AI leader to sort it through. At best, they're sorting it through somebody they know and trust. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's where your Accentures or Deloittes come in. They're like, well, at least whatever happens, you guys will deal with it. Um, but yeah, I have a lot of background and knowledge in this, and I'm fatigued. I
Totally.
can't
Yeah,
imagine people who didn't
exactly.
under this from the bottom up to be like, what?
Especially when anything that they do like try to push as a differentiator is smoke and mirrors or potentially vaporware, right? That's just like you have to actually test out like does it really do that?
Yeah.
I Whenever people ask me, hey, we're building something and like how do I know this tool we're using is going to be around in 6 months to a year, right? Because that's a real concern, right?
Yep.
And that's the other reason. Like just because you find something that works doesn't mean it's going to work for you long term if they go out of business. Often people selecting the tool because it's cheap or free. I'm like, be careful if they don't have a business model. But that's why I tend to look to like established enterprise tools adding agentic capabilities or AI capabilities because I think it's way easier for them to adapt AI to capabilities than it is for an AI startup of like 25 kids in a garage, 25-year-old kids in a garage to adapt to enterprise
Yeah.
and understand the challenges there, right?
Exactly. I
Um,
mean, speaking of right, I'm a big proponent of Lovable right now, but one of the reasons I can be is because it checks code into GitHub.
yes.
It's not stuck in there forever if
Yeah.
something happens or they all decide to just retire because they could. Um,
You still retain exactly the ownership over that code, and that's exactly like a lot of these generative platforms. I mean, Replit also gives you access to your code as well. I'm sure they all do at some level, but actually doing that check in to a nice like a repository you own gives you that level of security that like, hey, if I come back in 6 months and need to change something, I have the code. I don't have to go back and depend on this tool to
Yeah.
fix it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for all you CIOs, CTOs out there, or even the privacy officers, risk officers are getting hit with these AI platform sales pushes. I
So
feel you.
for you.
I got no answer. I got no answer for this.
Keep on keeping on, but stay skeptical because there's a lot of big risks in these unproven players. So
Yeah,
do watch out what they're
yeah.
promising.
And even the big ones, the promises, the marketing, when you get into the features, half of the time you're like, what on earth?
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think that's why people like one of the big advantages in that space is if enough people coalesce around one. Like that's why you see some of these getting popular. The one I think of all the time is Crew AI as one that's seeing like, hey, that's a lot of adoption. It's getting a lot of buzz. And it's funny because you're like, oh, that can actually be a big advantage because they're more likely if things consolidate around them, they're more likely to stay alive in this very, very, very crowded market, right? So
Very.
one of the considerations.
Okay.
That's enough BS. So
That's it for the BS.
got it. Those were some good ones this week. Well, we have time for one last segment, and that is plugs. So, Ying, do you have any plugs you want to make this
Same
month?
as usual, my plug in terms of subscribe to my newsletter on yuying.substack.com. You can also check out the newsletter on LinkedIn. This last one, of course, breaks down NVIDIA for you business leaders, not your Uber nerds in there in terms of what the major takeaways are.
Awesome. Excellent. Yuying's newsletter, it really is a gold mine. Be sure to subscribe to that. From my end, we are gearing up for the very last cohort of the spring of our AI Career Boost Blueprint program. So it's an 8-week program for product and business leaders who want to learn by getting hands-on with AI. You don't need any coding experience. It's no code tools, but if you want that little bit more technical depth to be able to work cohesively with your tech stakeholders as well as your business stakeholders and really build that bridge to thrive as an AI leader, that's who that's built for. So come find out all about it. I'm holding a free masterclass on April 15th. I'll have the link in the show notes, the path to AI leadership, and we'll go over exactly what are those durable skills you need to build if you want to lead AI projects. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to come from a technical background of developers like Yuying and I. There's lots of space in here right now for this hot market, like Yuying was pointing out. So come join us. And last but not least, be sure to love our podcast. If you enjoy hearing the latest news from us, getting the real scoop from people who have boots on the ground and some tech expertise to help you understand what is BS, give us a like.
If you're tired of hearing bros talking about AI.
Exactly, that too. Give us a like. It really helps get the word out about our podcast. Like 5 stars, whatever it is on your platform of choice. Well, that's been another episode of AI After Hours, and we will see you next time.
Woo!
Thanks for viewing.